Bill, you ready? Bill. Okay. Good evening. This is the business meeting for the Cave Creek Unified School District. Today is Tuesday, January 28th, and it is 6 p.m. Item 1.2, public comments. Okay. All right. First up is Jessica Fitzwater, and she will have 1 minute. This is
Hello.
our public hearing. This is our public hearing.
Okay, will you tell me when to start? Yes? Okay. Okay, my name is Jessica Fitzwater. I have a son that attends Lone Mountain. He is in the PALS program, our most vulnerable students, in my opinion. At first, when we had been informed that Lone Mountain may be closing, we had been told that PALS would be moving to Horseshoe Trails. I was thrilled about this decision because I have a daughter that attends there. She's been there for 3 years. The principal is phenomenal. The staff is phenomenal. They already have a good plan, I think, with inclusion, and I think that they would do a wonderful job at merging PALS into their school, making them feel welcome, teaching the other kids about kindness, because it's already there. So that community, I think, would be very successful for them. But then I was informed they're moving to Black Mountain now. I'm not happy about that move. I understand there's already a program there, but having 2 special needs programs in one place, I don't think is ideal, and I don't think that they will thrive. Thank you.
Next is Nicole Fioramonte, and she will have 6 minutes.
Good evening, President Busby and members of the board. My name is Nicole Fioramonte. I am a teacher and mother of 3 kids attending Lone Mountain. I have attended every board meeting and public forum since the facility's proposal of these closures, and I feel the need to speak up once again after the recent administration revised proposal. While I appreciate the attempt to keep Lone Mountain together, having Black Mountain absorb all of Lone Mountain brings up further concerns and frustrations. In the original focus meetings, it was discussed that Black Mountain did not have the space to acquire Lone Mountain, but suddenly the cabinet was able to quickly decide that we would be able to fit. Many teachers are questioning how 2 of the largest school populations, along with now 2 special need programs, PALS and PATH, would fit into one campus with the smallest assessed capacity. Keep in mind, PALS and PATH classrooms, along with resource classrooms, do not all fit at max capacity. Some may only have 8 per classroom. Before any movement, I urge you to ask for a map showing how they plan to execute this combination of student classrooms, special ed programs, resource rooms, and special area classes. Furthermore, in previous forums and meetings, when directly questioned about the possibility of amending this proposal, the cabinet was adamant that we needed to adhere to a timeline, telling the community we don't want to delay, and we need to hear what the board decides first. Why was the cabinet suddenly able to make a revision without adhering to this protocol and now delaying this decision by 2 weeks? This leaves our district office, facilities department, teachers, and families even less time to digest and prepare for the changes ahead. In fact, kindergarten roundup is next week, and families don't even know which schools will and won't be open. In addition, the biggest question that the public just cannot wrap their head around is why is the cabinet fighting so hard to keep Desert Willow open? Please know that this is not an attack on Desert Willow, but a need to understand why. One of the driving forces for the school closure is because all campuses are operating far under capacity. I don't know if you guys need a copy of the map. If you want me to bring it up, here's the new revised. We're good? We're good? Okay. The map speaks for itself. The Desert Willow is already in the bottom 2 for enrollment, needing to combine grade level classrooms. And now with the new boundary proposed, it is only a fraction of the district's population and is not being asked to absorb any other students. This new boundary proposal is taking away this school's opportunity to grow and thrive. How is this effective for our district? What are we not being told? What is the hidden agenda? For the future of our district, we should be keeping open 3 schools with the most enrollment who bring in financial income and offer a variety of programs. Lone Mountain is one of these schools. Also, it has been suggested that district may now continue to use these campuses for things such as preschool or ECS programs. Why cause all this change to now have less capacity on these campuses with these new programs? If we still own the buildings, how is this helping us financially? It has been discussed several times. The choice to close schools and alter the future of the district needs to be decided with ample time and experienced members. 4 data meetings with people who did not know the full extent of what committee they were signing up for is not the best way to make a choice that will have lasting impacts on the future of our district. If you make the mistake and close the wrong school, you cannot go back and fix that. We need to start with Desert Sun and see what the district even does with this campus before jumping the gun and closing 2 schools, relocating 6th grade, and not even having a concrete phase 2 plan in place. To be honest, the lack of transparency and the absence of solid data-driven justifications for these closures have left many teachers and parents uncertain about the future of Cave Creek and hesitant to remain in the district. By closing 2 schools and relocating 6th grade to the middle school, you are asking so many teachers to pack up, move, and re-interview for jobs. Why should teachers choose to stay? We could drive just a few minutes in any direction and work in a district that pays more, provides curriculum for our classrooms, and has a voting community that values public education in its schools. I fear that we are giving so many of our highly affected teachers the push they have needed to finally leave our district, and parents will follow. Good leaders make mistakes. Great leaders can acknowledge them and do something about it. We are asking the board to be our great leaders and realize this decision has been flawed from the start, and we simply need more time to make it right. Thank you.
Next is Carrie McCullough, and Carrie will have 9 minutes.
Governing Board members and the Cabinet members, thank you for taking the time to listen to the community's concerns and for making adjustments to decisions based on feedback. While many concerns remain, it is encouraging to see that people are being heard. Our district is facing significant challenges, particularly in the areas of student enrollment and teacher retention. The upcoming decisions regarding school facilities will have a direct impact on both. The way the process has unfolded has been problematic. There are 3 key parts that influence outcomes. 1 is the process. People want to be active in decisions. 2, emotions. People have a past that sway emotions and they want to feel heard. The 3rd is results. People need to have all the information and every part needs to be well framed. While a few dedicated individuals were involved in the proposal, the broader community was not engaged in these critical aspects. As a result, the community is now divided. The division will ultimately lead to district losing both students and staff. If changes are necessary, perhaps we should reconsider the intent behind these proposals. Was the purpose of the Facilities Committee simply to identify which schools to close, or was it to ensure a financially stable district? I have heard suggestions like restructuring campuses by grade levels, rebranding schools, or even creating new schools within the same buildings to offer a fresh new start for all. Some districts have gone so far as to rename the schools to make the process more inclusive. If we have to downsize schools, why are we erasing cultures instead of meshing them together? There are numerous ways to unite the district rather than allowing further division. There's a list of things I hope that are considered before decisions are being made. Is it really a good idea to place the PATH and PALS program on the same elementary campus? The needs of these students in these programs are extremely different. While having them housed at the campuses of the middle school and high school seem to work, block scheduling is very different from the schedules at elementary schools. There are many times throughout the day that elementary grade levels come together to socially interact. The students enrolled in both of these programs would be together at times. The teachers will quickly burn out with the added responsibilities of inclusion, meetings, and other duties for all. The students are the ones that will be suffering. With that in mind, the word is out on possible repurposing of DSA and LMES. While I commend people for being creative, none of these have been thought through. It might look good on paper to say the district could establish a Level D special education school at DSA. But is this realistic? Let's take a look at the success rate of our special education programs and department in Cave Creek. What is the turnover rate for special education teachers? How many contracted special education teachers does Cave Creek currently employ? I know firsthand that some of the students in private placements could currently still be on our campuses because I had them as students. Teachers in self-contained programs, as well as resource, simply need more support, which the district is not providing. Leasing a building to provide a private Level D program might be a great situation, but starting a Level D district school is a huge undertaking. There are different restrictions and regulations for public and charter schools that have this type of programming. There's a reason only 4 public districts in the entire state of Arizona have these programs. In addition, Level D teachers and support staff are in high demand. And if we can't retain and support the resource and self-contained teachers we currently have, how will the district adequately staff and support Level D programming? However, after reviewing the board docs for tonight, it seems like this has already been predetermined. While changes need to occur within the special education department to provide more support to staff, aren't we rushing things by asking the board to approve a principal of alternative programs position? I'm at a loss. How can the district not properly support the staff we currently have and propose closing schools, yet somehow find the funds to consider a new school with a new administration without properly vetting the plan? Has anyone actually looked into what it takes to start and manage a school of this type? Turning LMES into an ECS center was also confusing to hear. This has been brought up numerous times in the past and always quickly denied, stating that having a preschool at our main campuses helped draw families into the elementary schools, and families also like one drop-off for their kids. What has all of a sudden changed to make this a great idea? Offering special area classes to homeschool children through ECS is a fantastic idea, but wouldn't it make more sense to have these students come to our main campuses and take advantage and show off what we already offer? This may help draw in new students. Splitting up successful campuses and communities and potentially losing families for minimal, if any, cost savings is very short-sighted. These options should have been presented to the community over a year ago for a proper evaluation. Now the cabinet is asking the board to make hasty decisions without necessary facts and without community buy-in. While students are the focus, and rightly so, we cannot overlook the impact on staff. I am deeply concerned about how our staff is being treated. There have been meetings and emails sent to staff conveying different messages. Yesterday, the process was clarified. One sentence stated, staff at schools impacted by closures will receive a transfer interest form to complete. And then later stated, teachers at sites that are closing will have first priority over vacant and added positions on campuses. Every school in this district has incredible people working hard for our children, and it is unacceptable that staff at schools potentially facing closures are being asked to reapply and go through informal interviews for positions at other campuses. We have legendary teachers, most of which are here tonight, like Christine Paul, Colleen Neiman, Lori Johnston, Natalie May, and Carrie Barrett, just to name a few. The list could go on and on. These teachers have dedicated their careers to this district. Jessica and Sydney, who lead Lone Mountain and who have been there through principal after principal, making sure that the school is still successful, and who have had their children in our district, and that's not being recognized. How can we call ourselves a unified district if we treat teachers, administrators, and classified personnel with a proven track record as expendable? I was recently told by a teacher that she shouldn't expect any different, as she is just a number. I understand the pain of being shown the door after years of service, and no one deserves to feel that way. If we truly want to be a unified district, we must treat people with the respect that they have earned. I understand that the governing board doesn't control HR. However, the district cannot afford to lose the best of the best. Why would we ever put teammates against each other for open positions? Salary concerns are an issue, but according to staff surveys and conversations with staff who have left the district, the primary reason to leaving this district is feeling undervalued and disrespected. If these exceptional educators are being asked to go through a hiring process within our district, why wouldn't they consider opportunities in neighboring districts? I know this to be true, as I have already been asked by numerous current employees for letters of recommendation. It's troubling that some believe it's acceptable to punish employees who are being displaced. Couldn't these individuals have the same opportunities as others within the district? Everyone's contract states Cave Creek Unified School District at the top. Shouldn't we be rewarding staff and administrators who have proven their worth rather than making them fill in the gaps? What has made this district special for so long is its sense of family, but that sense of unity is quickly fading. Our teachers and staff are in the trenches every day. It is far beyond the numbers on spreadsheets, and even in the most difficult times, true leaders should be prioritizing building up others and offering support. A very respectable principal shared a little secret with me when I resigned. I was told that Cave Creek needed me more than I needed Cave Creek. And guess what? People are learning that little secret. The real test now is how our district's leadership team is going to respond to it.
Next up is Zach McQueen, and Zach will have 15 minutes.
I'm going to take this off too so you can see my face. So I wasn't, good evening members of the board, members of the cabinet. I wasn't going to start with a quote, but I think I need to. Dick Van Dyke was asked on his 100th birthday, what is love? He said, well, it's certainly a feeling of caring about the welfare and the life of another person as much as you care for yourself. So I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you tonight. I'm not questioning the fact that you don't love our students. I'm questioning the business decision. And yes, this is a business decision. So we have to think about it in that regard. And I was really hoping that a lot of answers were going to be answered in that working session, but it actually left me with more questions. Where to start? I think the teacher, one of the things I heard from that was we're just going to have natural attrition, so we're not going to have rifts, a reduction in force for our teachers. I think that's disappointing and not respectful of our teachers. Everything that I'll go over tonight, to the board members, I sent you in an email, so you have all my slides. I'm an over-preparer. I apologize for that. But let me see if I can get my thoughts together here. So for Lone Mountain, some facts that I don't want to miss on. The grass area is 99,000 square feet. It's the largest in the district. We have 5 acres of extra space on that property that could be used. And there's a city park in progress. So if we talk about revenue of that school that we're getting for the fields, it's probably all going to be lost when that park opens because they'll just go over there. The profitable statement of the weighted ADM and M&O expenditures, which we'll get into in a minute with a visual here, Lone Mountain is profitable in that. There's a successful implementation of the PALS program there that wasn't before it went to Lone Mountain. We've had multiple principals. Our current one is an asset to this district. The teachers stayed, the family stayed. We lost our dedicated STEM teacher, the teachers stayed, the family stayed. We have Coach Carrick that's raised 40 grand for our school district. We have the most participants in cross country. We have the most participants in the district track and field. So community, right? We'll talk about that. It's not necessarily about the buildings, but Lone Mountain is an asset to the district. When we talk about Desert Willow, neither the focus group or the administration evaluated the locations of the open enrollment students until tonight when they brought it up. When I asked in the email, asked for it multiple times, it was finally reviewed with the board today. That showed that there's 84 students, 78, sorry, I think was covered today, that are out of the district. So we're going to make a decision based on 78 students and not the kids that are in our district. So let's talk about, let me see if I can, because preschool was talked about. There's 14 competing preschools in our district, so that's not a viable option for us. The Title D piece, do we even know if the kids or those families want to come back to our district? Some of them had legal counsel to get the services that they need to go out of the district. But here's my first visual, right? So we go back to the focus group. They talked about the weighted ADM and the the M&O expenditures. So if it was presented this way, and if you looked at every single elementary school, right? Horseshoe Trails, Black Mountain, and Lone Mountain were all positive, right? Desert Willow was 6,700, and this is from Dr. Pletnick's presentation. $6,700 in the negative, and DSA was $644,000 in the negative. So again, this goes back to my point. You're making a decision without full information. I want you to make sure that you're making an informed decision. Okay, so if you were to look at this detail, right, it's a different story than that was told in the focus group. Well, that's in a second. Savings per campus, and this one, again, I have more questions on the working session, and this is in the attachments that I sent you, but if you look at potential savings per campus, and my wife Annette asked for details on all the campuses, because again, that wasn't reviewed with the board, with the focus group. It wasn't reviewed again tonight because we're focusing on 2 schools. And there's a number of 1.2 or 1.5 or whatever you have to get to, and I'm not saying that this is a solution, but the potential savings, if you were to close Black Mountain Elementary School, is $838,000, $200,000 more than Lone Mountain. Horseshoe Trails, if you were to close Horseshoe Trails, $713,000. Again, I'm not saying that those are the campuses that you need to close. What I'm saying is all of the information was not presented to the board or the community without us asking more questions. This one's going to be interesting. So let's talk about the School Facilities Board, aka SFB, aka SFD, aka SFOB, aka BRG, aka School Facilities Board. This one, and James, I know you're going to talk about this more, right? But this one is so confusing because when you look at the numbers and the projected amount of expenses for the schools coming up in the next 10 years, if we close a school and we don't have a solution for it and we don't bring something back for 12 kids and manipulate the way that the reporting is done, then we're responsible for 100% of it. So if you look at the projections, the schools that have the most expenditures coming up, you would want to keep our kids in that school because we have the coverage from SFB. But if you close the school and don't have our kids in it and eventually there's not for an instructional purposes, then you're responsible for 100% of it. Again, the information is not all out there. You're not fully vetting this information and sharing what you need to and asking all the questions about the School Facilities Board. The other thing I don't understand is on the projections, right? So when you go to the facilities focus group page and you look at the details that were provided, and then my wife Annette, again, asking all these questions, she can't be here tonight, but she asked what were the last 5 years of actual expenditures for Lone Mountain. In the last 5 years, there was a total of about $32,000 of expenses for Lone Mountain that were submitted for SFB funds. But somehow we go from $32,000 in the next 10 years, we're projected for $1.3 million of an expenditure. The age of the campus is 2002. Desert Willow was built in 1999. Both of their central plants were replaced in 2015, and somehow the projections for Desert Willow are $600,000, but Lone Mountain is $1.3 million. How does that make sense? Now, I can't see the reports, you can't do the line items, but still, questions should be asked. What are the expenditures? What are we spending money on? And why are the numbers the way they are, right? Still with me? Okay, cost-cutting exercise. And this one, again, with all due respect, again, I just want to look at all the numbers and all the solutions. And it was said multiple times tonight, we don't know where else to look. So let's do an exercise. And again, I don't have all the details because I don't know the actual org chart. But if you look at the org chart, I've been told there's 40 people in the district office, right? So we have a superintendent, we have 2 assistant superintendents, a CFO, and then at the director level we have 9 directors, and we have 2 managers, and there's 25 other roles. I don't know what they are because I don't have access to that, right? Again, I'm not looking for anybody's job, okay? But when you look at the pay scale, and from a business standpoint, one thing that we can do is look at pay scale and right sizing. And Dr. Plechnik used that phrase, right sizing. One of the things in business with right sizing is looking at pay scale and job roles. So if we did this exercise, right, we have 9 directors. Again, with all due respect, right, I'm just solutions. We got to talk about this stuff. Here's our director pay scale. So we have a low salary range and a high salary range for director, and then manager, which there's only a couple listed, so I did these right here. And in those 9 roles, here's your low salary range and your high salary range. Again, I don't know the actual figures. But if we adjusted this, right, and took director level roles down to manager level roles, you'd save about $200,000. Now you're asking, well, I don't control that, right, as the board? So the Arizona Revised Statute 15-502A states, the governing board at any time may employ and fix the salaries and benefits of employees necessary for the succeeding year. The statute grants the governing board the discretion to determine the employment position and set corresponding compensation levels within the district. Therefore, the board can decide to reclassify director-level roles to manager-level roles, accompanied by appropriate adjustments in pay scales as part of its governance responsibilities. Again, I'm not saying this needs to happen. I'm just saying there's options. Okay? We have to look at our district, specifically our district. We're not PV. They are 10x CCUSD. Okay? I know that when we look at the pay scale, we're at 11% of our expenditures are admin pay, which is country and federal and whatever, it's not that level, but we have to look at our district. We're asking our students to sacrifice, but we're not asking the adults to sacrifice. Okay? We have to look at all options. Let's see what else I got here. Oh, man. Oh, the other thing, agenda item 5.8 tonight, and I think Carrie already brought it up. If you look at action consent, and if you move forward with the action consent 5.8 tonight, you are already approving the creation of something that you have not approved. Because those 3 roles in action consent 5.8, if you vote yes tonight on that, approves the move to create this other school that we haven't fully vetted out to see if we could even bring kids back. That's what 5.8 is doing tonight. So, the provision of Arizona Revised Statute 15-341 apply broadly to an individual group within the school district who acts beyond their delegated authority, including all the members, right? Again, with all due respect, we cannot move forward until we vet this information. You cannot ask the board to vote for something until we vet the information and have all of it out there. Get the community involved so we can do it. From a logistics standpoint, and I'm project manager, so I'm thinking this way. I have a list, it's in the thing. There's 48 categories and about 100 action items that you would have to do to make all these moves that you're proposing to do. When are we going to do that? When are we going to expect the teachers to do that? Is it going to be within contract hours? Is it going to be over the summer? How much are you giving to each teacher to tear down their classroom and move it? Have we allocated that budget in our savings? Is it going to cost the district more to make these moves than we're actually going to save? There's not enough desks at some of these school campuses. The PTOs pay for, now I'm kind of back into it. PTOs pay for the specials at Black Mountain. We're only going to have 3 specials, so does that mean STEM's going away? Have we talked about that? What about Coach Carrick? He created an environment for track and field and cross country and just got basketball hoops for the kids. What are we going to do with all those assets that were just purchased? And I think that about does it. I have 2 minutes left. There's more I could talk about. Again, I had a whole list of questions right here. I sent you guys as well. I was hoping that they were going to get answered during the working session. I just have more questions. We got to pump the brakes. We have to look at options. You cannot make all this change and drop a bomb on our district and expect it to be successful. At a minimum, I'm asking you to change the vote, and we can look at closing Desert Willow because of the profitability. I get it, and that's horrible to say. Let's start with one and make it successful. Because you haven't even talked about the administrator, Ms. Z and Dr. Culbertson. What are their options? It's so frustrating. And in the same fashion, when you look at right sizing, why is not, if we're going to close 2 schools, everybody should have to reapply from every single level to give everybody the equal opportunity, and for us to also look at our TEI, because that's going to have an impact as well. You can lose some tenured teachers that's not even taken into consideration in the calculations. Your TEI can go down. So that factor, that multiplying factor that you have, will go down, your funding will go down. Again, another factor we haven't fully vetted. So my point is, again, I'm not questioning your love for our students in this community. I'm questioning this business decision. It is not solid. It is not fully vetted. There's a better way to do this. There are people that want to help. I want to help. I just gave you some exercises, right? Gave you some homework to do. I want to help. I'm here to help. I don't want to quit. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Catherine Mueller, and she will have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Catherine Mueller, and my son is currently attending Lone Mountain. I actually live in the Paradise Valley District and are 3 minutes away from Horseshoe Trails. I chose to come to Lone Mountain for the warmth, the community, and the small school feel, which is almost impossible to find in the Phoenix metropolis. My son has severe ADHD and defiance disorder. I knew that Lone Mountain would have the cognitive therapist, the reading support, and the testing needs to help him become a successful student. The STEAM program was an added benefit to keep him busy, focused, and make interactive learning fun. Lone Mountain has an extremely strong PTO, a fantastic principal, and let's not forget our amazing, caring, genuine teachers who actually communicate with us. One such teacher has been at this school for 20 years. In previous meeting, it sounds like our teachers do not have placements. This seems crazy to me given the size of our district. Another reason for the focus group's suggested closing of Lone Mountain was to give our teachers a 1% raise. A 1% raise in the Cave Creek district is $460. I would gladly give $460 to a number of the teachers sitting in this room to keep Lone Mountain and our community of students intact. And I do not believe that I'm the only parent that would do this. Having my own business in the design housing industry, it amazes me that we'd want to lose Lone Mountain and its location when there are housing developments popping up on every corner around our school. There is a major influx of people coming to Phoenix, Cave Creek, and Scottsdale, and these are not retirees. These are people who have families who want to come to Lone Mountain. Also, given the fire situation in California, I believe there's going to be a major influx of people leaving that state who need a school like Lone Mountain. Lone Mountain is the largest, newest, and highest capacity school in our district. Desert Willow is the oldest, and in my opinion, it looks like it's fallen down. It seems the most economical and smartest move to combine Desert Willow into Lone Mountain and have two very strong, attractive programs for these new families coming into our community. We'd have Spanish immersion and the STEAM program, which was a major draw. STEAM is blowing up in every industry. I believe we need more time, as the gentleman said previously. Please don't make the wrong decisions for our students. Please look at what it does to our teachers. And please, please, please just give us more time to make the right financial decision. Thank you.
Next is McKenna Geary, and McKenna will have 1 minute.
Hello, my name is McKenna Geary, and I am a fourth grader at Lone Mountain. Here are 3 reasons why we should keep Lone Mountain open. Number 1, if we close only Desert Sun Academy and combine the students from DSA to Lone Mountain, we could have both a STEAM and Spanish program. This will attract more kids to our district. Number 2, our teachers are awesome. U.S. News says 67% of Lone Mountain students excel in math and reading, beating the district's average of 57%. They even rank Lone Mountain second best in the district. Let's keep these amazing teachers at Lone Mountain leading the way. Number 3, our campus is big and beautiful and right next to a developing park and growing housing community. It just makes sense for the district to keep Lone Mountain open and a part of this thriving area. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Katie Moraitis. Moraitis, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, 1 minute.
1 minute. All right. Good. All right. So similar to Steve, I believe that this is really a business decision, which is honestly why I'm just so confused by what's being proposed. So instead of making a statement, I want to ask questions that I've asked before, but to my knowledge, they have not been answered and really should be answered publicly. Why hasn't a full district P&L been shared? Where is a line-by-line cost and proposed savings with possible closures? How are projected future expenses being calculated? What district office cuts will be happening? This is basically a RIF, so what roles are being eliminated to implement cost savings? What truly are the realistic revenue-generating options for each of the 3 discussed closures? How do those compare to cost and expenses, both for current and projected? Does the districts truly have the capacity and resources to implement changes that will affect every single student and family in their elementary schools and middle school within a 2-month time period? Why is this being so rushed? It's frankly irresponsible and disrespectful to teachers, children, and tax-paying families. 6th graders, what is exactly happening with them? Suggestions have been made, but yet still there's no actual clear definitive information, no forward progress being made, and my 5th grader doesn't know what he's doing next year. Why is one of the most profitable, newest, and largest facilities being closed? Doesn't make sense. Why isn't a phased approach being proposed and planned? Close
Thank
one
you.
school and then another. Take this opportunity to build trust and stability both financially and culturally within the community. No need to rip a Band-Aid off and have solutions in place to support all children, families, and staff members.
Excuse me, your time is up.
I know, Steve left a minute, though. If you have any of these answers, fantastic. I would like you to share them. And if
In
not, let's
fairness
pause and
to
get
all
this
of our
right.
speakers, your
No,
time
I
is
know.
up.
There was 1
no,
minute left.
your
Thank
time
you
is
very
up.
much
I'm
for your
sorry.
time, though, Janet.
Our next speaker is Oren Shorb, and Oren will have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Oren Shorb. I'm a 6th grader at Lone Mountain. I've been going to Lone Mountain since kindergarten, and I can tell you that Lone Mountain is an amazing school. Many of the kids in Lone Mountain would agree. It's just amazing. It has the PALS program, which is very profitable. And Lone Mountain, too, it has an amazing campus. It's very big. It has amazing things. It used to have the STEAM program, which got closed down. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Shannon Takawaki. And Shannon will have 1 minute.
Hello, members of the board and cabinet. Thank you very much. I just want to say I support this district. I am a teacher here at the high school. My daughters both go to Black Mountain, and I support whatever needs to be done to keep us open and financially solvent. I have concerns, and I'm nervous, especially about, like other people have said, the rush to change things, especially for my 5th grader who's currently at Black Mountain, and she's not sure what's going to happen, and she's a little, these, poor 5th graders, they didn't get to finish kindergarten thanks to COVID, and so I know she especially is feeling a little rushed, and like, now I'm not going to get to be 6th grade, they didn't get to run for offices, and so there's these other things, and I mean, sometimes that's just life and it's sad, but it is a little rushed, and I'm concerned about that, but whatever, I support whatever we need to do to keep the good teachers here and have the good community. I know at Black Mountain, they have really, really awesome ones too, and so whatever keeps it for our kids. Thank you.
And our final speaker is James Kai, and he will have 11 minutes.
President Busby, members of the board, cabinet, thank you guys so much for all the effort that you've been putting in. I know the working session, there was a lot of information that was presented. Sorry. Can you hear me now? All right. I appreciate that. And although there was a lot there, I think the question that comes, it's been continuing to come up, and the decision in front of you as a board you have to determine, is there more risk to quickly and temporarily solve our current financial problem that could affect us in the 2027 to 2028 year versus the risk of fallout from families, teachers, student loss, from what is making it feels like the perception of a rushed decision with limited transparency. The rush is because of the time that this recommendation has been in the public. So I'd like to just put that framework out there for the decisions I think that are being made. And those are the risks that we're looking at. There's risks on both sides, and I know the cabinet is doing their job to really play out the financial risk on an issue that's been around since 2011, I believe. We've had financial issues for a long time. But there's also the other side, as you've been hearing from neighbors, teachers, family members. So a couple things that I have questions and challenges on are, what are the growth plans? So I understand we do need to right size our ship. We do need to fix and live within our budget. Those have all been said, and I completely and wholeheartedly agree. But at what rate and how quickly do we need to do this? One of the items I would suggest, and I've mentioned it before, is regarding a bond or an override. I think it's important, especially with the timing that we have, being in an off-cycle year, and we look back at the 2021 bond, which was not an override, and if I recall, that was a very close vote, versus the last override, which was for teacher pay, but was on an on-cycle election, where you had a lot more people that were involved. I know there's higher costs to that, but I think it's worth looking at it, because if it's not successful, why spend any money? But if we have a higher likelihood of success, we really need to look at that. I would challenge Member Walker, Member Fortney, to please request from the cabinet to take a look at that as an agenda item so we do not miss the time for that opportunity, and that's time is of the essence. When we're looking at what's the vision, I've spent time, as I've mentioned, with multiple people across the industry, across the board. I've tried to reach out to the legislature to speak to them on what options we have. I'm available to help wherever I can, and I hope you feel that way. But a challenge that I was given from Representative Gress, who's in charge of the Education Committee, is, what does CCUSD want to be? What is the vision? How do we get there? What does it want to be known for? Does it want to be known for Title D? Does it want to be known as an ECS, as a homeschooling alternative? I think there's other things, but I think we need time. It's when we have cooler heads, we can prevail. We're rushing decisions, and we're moving based on information that's being presented, but I don't know if it's all been thought out, and I'm not putting blame on it. We're all trying to work towards an issue, because there's this 2028 blow-up thing that's going to possibly happen right on our budget and our loss of enrollment. But it needs to be looked at, because here's the thing. If we go by demographics and we go by trends and losses, unfortunately, we're going to be shutting additional schools down as time goes on, because the budget that Dr. Pletnick had put out, 32 million, 28 million, 27, 26 million, it's going to drop, right, because of enrollment. So we need to look at both things, and I've said this before. You can stabilize a business with cutting costs, but you do not grow it to some extent by increasing your top line, which business numbers, whatever we want, but students are that, families are that, and they have the opportunity to choose to go elsewhere. I know we've said it's a threat, maybe it's not, but the question is, going to my question, is there more risk of that threat? And when looking at it from a retention standpoint, because I've had numerous conversations with other families whose kids currently go to other schools, their kids would like to come back here because of the community, which is awesome, but there still is a perception, for whatever reason, if it's education, behavioral issues at the level of, then this is specific to high school on that conversation, which maybe aligns with the 10% loss that we have at high school, or 5% loss of the middle school. Our elementary schools are not in that loss ratio, right? We're at 2% based on the information at the board meeting. So we need to look at those things. But those families right now, and they moved here from another part of the country, they right now will not bring their kids back here. They're looking at Pinnacle. They're looking at other schools. We need time to work through that. We have lots of things, and I think right now you have a community here of people that are engaged, and I know it may feel like a pain, and I know it may feel difficult, but here's the two options. You can continue to keep them engaged by listening to feedback. People want to hear. Part of this whole process is to be heard, it's to be listened to, and have transparency and be part of that process. The sad day, honestly, is when they all go away. Because now you've lost that engagement. And I will hit on that as an inflection point. It's a critical item. You have momentum right now because there's a need and there's crisis. As soon as we shut down the opportunity for people to be heard, the crisis is gone, and whatever the decision will be, that's what it will be, and people will go away. So I encourage you to figure out what are ways to keep people engaged. I talked a little bit about what will stop the loss. SFD, I'll be quick on this one because Zach hit it. But I think it's critical to clarify the SFB, SFD, SFOB, all of the acronyms that we have. While we're looking at properties to still be utilized in the district, our liabilities are the same, right? As soon as that property was built in 2002 and the state bid their funding model, that 63% is a liability that the district has. If we keep it as a school-run facility, not as a school, but let's say it is the ECS facility and I have students, we still have the same liability. So that's why I continue to say it should not be a reason for consideration between our schools. And the repurpose of schools and campuses need to be considered. The other item I've heard is, well, if we get a tenant, that they'll take care of the maintenance and operations. So I'm going to challenge that from my experience. So I've had the fortunate ability to operate and manage about 400,000 square feet of real estate. It's retail real estate, hotel, all kinds of different asset types. I've actually had a school in City of Safford for the Gila School that was a tenant. They get funding on a year-to-year basis. Charter school, similar to what we're doing. They do not fund capital expense items. They may fund maintenance and operations from year to year, but they don't have the dollars to take care of a plant, to replace those types of things. So I think it's not accurate to say that we could try to put that on another tenant. And if we don't use it, and then it's at 100%. So I think that's something that needs to be clarified through the meetings. I'm glad you got ROI. Beth Jo Zeitler is great to be able to do that. I've worked with her in the past before. I'm happy to, again, you've got assets of people that care here. Honestly, I've spent a lot of time, and it's not to brag, but I wouldn't if I didn't care about these teachers, about this community, about these people. There's a lot of opportunity to spend time. And again, you've got engagement. Utilize that. Figure out how do we engage this group of people to help work. Because I hear it. Hey, as soon as a decision's made, everyone goes away. You get what you want, everyone goes away. So how do we fix that? Okay, transparency. I'm going to talk about this. So part of the issue, I think, with Desert Willow being put out there and people being concerned is there might have been groups and forums for the 4 meetings that had happened, but it publicly did not come out till the December time period. That's a rush perspective, and the transparency of all these decisions that were made behind the focus groups. Part of, I think, the value of having, and I know we can't talk about it today to do it, but having Desert Willow, having Lone Mountain, having Desert Sun as possibilities is it allows the entire community to be heard. We've said, well, I've heard, well, Desert Willow would be here just as loud as Lone Mountain if that's the case. I don't know if that's the case. I have had conversations with some families. It's not verifiable data from a comp set, but people that I've talked to that are there say it's the program. It's a Spanish immersion program. And I think when Member Moore was talking about bringing 3 schools during the study session, it wasn't a function of bringing 3 to close. It was bringing 3 for optionality because it gives the board the best decisions and being able to have levers to pull, right? When we're making decisions, when you only have an option of 2 schools and then the ultimatum is, well, if we shut it down, it's going to be horrendous, it makes it difficult. So I think that's the case. But I do think if you look at the ratio, based on the December 3rd numbers moving it forward, it looks like there's about a 30% capacity. So the view is Desert Willow would be next. I mean, I think that is a perception. It may not be accurate, but when you look at those things, it's important to understand that. So I've said it 55 seconds. There's an inflection point. You've got to do the best thing for the kids. There's 89 respondents that have responded to a form. 56 of those people have said they would help with the bond or override. Again, I don't know if they get 100%, but I guarantee we're going to get more than 10. And that's what I think happened last time. You need to slow down the decision. I would implore and I would challenge the board to make sure they're not rushing it. Again, financial risk versus what's the risk of fallout, and looking at those things. Is there a solution? And I would recommend that you look at closing one, which would be Desert Sun, to get financial stability, and then try to work through some of these other issues. We have a couple of years, not a lot, but some time to try to do that. And I think, as you can see, there's a lot of passion around this school, and not just because it's this school, but that's also getting time to get the vision moving forward. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Item 1.3, is there a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item 2.1, I'm calling to order the business meeting. Roll call, all members of the board are present. All members of the cabinet are here. Dr. Hendrickson, Dr. Pletnick, Dr. Jensen, and Mr. Dolezal. Item 2.2, the Pledge of Allegiance, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 2.3, formal adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, any changes to the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, what would we like to change?
I'd like to pull item 5.8.
Okay,
Please.
where would you like to put it? After consent agenda?
Yes, please.
Okay. Anything else?
5.5,
Okay,
5.6,
okay,
5.10, 5.11.
okay. And do you want those after action?
Totally
please?
fine.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to accept the revised agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, we did those backwards. All right. Item 2.5, President's Report. I had attended the Future Stinger Night at Sonoran Trails and also the Future Falcon Night at Cactus Shadows. And first, I got to say, these kids look younger and younger every year, which is not fair. But it was really great to see such enthusiasm from kids and parents. And it's really exciting to see a whole bunch of kids coming in. And that's what I had done this week. 2.6, board comments. Anybody?
Sure. Attended the girls' game of the Future Falcon Night, which is always good to see our young Falcons come out. Varsity cheer send-off Friday and Saturday. It was fun to watch parents completely embarrass their kids as they go off to state. Coffee with the superintendent at Horseshoe Trails. Good time to spend with the cabinet and Mr. P. Attended DSA and Lone Mountain Forums. Watched the forums online because I did miss the Fine Arts Center one. And then again, just been doing due diligence and talking to the community to navigate these fun times.
I've also just been in attendance at the forums and then also watched the one that I missed online as well. And then been able to catch a few soccer games for the high school and then volleyball games at the middle school. Looking forward to all the other events coming up that will be at the Fine Arts Center very soon.
Let's see. There was these community forums. They were very helpful, so thank everybody that came out for those. Again, thank you for the emails and the texts and the calls and your comments. They are greatly appreciated. So that's taking up some of the time there. Thanks.
Kind of echoing that sentiment, I was unable to attend. I was out of town for a couple of the forums, but I did catch them all online several times on a couple of them, and then have met with several community members and spoken with some of you. And I just want to say I really appreciate so many of you who have put so much time and energy into this. beyond, I appreciate the emotional pitches too. I understand as a mom and a woman. That's how we operate sometimes. But the attention to detail and the fact and really presenting that information, it does not go unnoticed, even if you don't get a reply back right away. That's what we really like to hear. We want to hear from you because we don't sit in on all of the meetings and different things that go on either. So I just wanted to acknowledge everybody and say thank you, and especially to those of you who have shown up over and over again and spoken and reiterated and researched. Thank you.
I would like to also thank everybody who did attend the forums. We all appreciate the time everybody took, your passion, and your desire to see this district continue to succeed. And all that I ask is, however this all plays out, as I think it was James said, we have quote-unquote crisis. Please don't stop being interested in what we're doing. It's your passion that's driving this district. Item 2.7, Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, President Busby, members of the board. CCUSD held our district spelling bee on the 14th at the Fine Arts Center. I'm pleased to report that we will be sending 2 candidates to the regional spelling bee on February 11th. First place was Grayson Baker, a 6th grader at Lone Mountain, and runner-up was Braxton Gazzo, a 6th grader at Desert Willow. Congratulations and best of luck at regionals hosted right here in CCUSD this year. Congratulations to Cactus Shadow student Abby Gold, whose poem Men and Wells Don't Do Well was selected as the topical winner and will be included in the My World Select section of the American High School Poets Winter 2025 Anthology. This book became available for purchase on Amazon January 20th. What a great accomplishment. Less than 2% of all poems submitted across the nation are published. Congratulations to the Cactus Shadows choir and band members who qualified for regionals this weekend. For band, Sarah Duncan, Tyler Ingram, Caden McEwen, Lillian Heck, Bryce Blumenthal, and Ben Anderson. For choir, Kaylee Rollins, Isabella Aryepitov, Cynthia McCann, Paloma Smalley, and Paula Angulo. The Cactus Shadows cheer team brought home the Division 24-25 Division II state championship. A special congratulations as well to Coach Brianna Canto, who was honored as the Coach of the Year. The Sonoran Trails, go ahead. Sonoran Trails cheer team also earned 2 first-place finishes in their competitions. Congratulations to all our incredible cheer teams. They also did a great job cheering on runners for CCUEF's Run the District event this past weekend. It is that time of year where our National Board certified teachers are recognized for either earning their certification or maintaining their certification. These teachers will be formally honored Saturday, March 21st at the annual Celebration of Accomplished Teaching, Arizona statewide event. I would like to congratulate and recognize the following teachers. Angela Thomas, Cactus Shadows High School, achieved her certification. Amy Macbeth, Sonoran Trails, maintained her certification. And Alyssa Gold, Horseshoe Trails and Desert Willow, maintained her certification. I'd like to congratulate our January Employees of the Month, Jesse Gomez from Cactus Shadows, Daniel Slager, Sonoran Trails, Katie Folk, Black Mountain, Carrie McKeon, Desert Sun, Jackie Schottel, Desert Willow, Kelly Hansen, Horseshoe Trails, Emma Ingram, Lone Mountain, and Edgar Robles from the district office. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Okay. Item 3.1, our fiscal year 2024-25 budget update presented by Dr. Pletnick.
President Busby, members of the board, a lot of this information from the work study is going to be kind of a repeat for you, but we'll go ahead and cover it again. What we're going to look at tonight is 2 funds that are formula-based funds. So these 2 funds are funded by our tax dollars, and that's our local property taxes, and which is M&O, which is a formula based on the 100-day student count. And then DAA, or again, capital, district additional assistance, what's called capital. If we look at the current capacity, and again pulling the capacity from the report before any adjustments or carry forward, what we're looking from the state on the December report is our capacity is at right about $30.5 million, where because of the $2 million we moved over to M&O, our capacity is about $471,000 for our capital per the December report. When we're looking at adding the additions, the carry forwards, and any adjustments, we're looking at a capacity in December of $34,500,000, and then with our capital, we are looking at about $1.8 million in capacity. So when we're looking at our current spending year to date, again, how much we've already spent and how much we have encumbered or what's earmarked to be spent, we're looking at our M&O being at right about $30.8 million at this point. That does give us a remaining budget for the remaining part of the school year of $2.2 million. We are also looking at our capital being at just over $800,000, again, giving us about, within our capacity, $942,000 remaining. Some steps that we have done during the first semester of this particular school year. First one is vacant positions and not filling certain vacant positions. Currently, on the last reports, when I had payroll pullets, we had just over $400,000 of vacant positions. Now, unfortunately, some of those positions, because they are vacant, like, for example, a mechanic at transportation, we've had to use some of those funds for things like hiring outside to fix our buses. And so we're using funds for those pieces. If we have vacant positions in special ed, again, contractors are where it fills. So yes, even though it is that much in vacant positions, unfortunately, because of contracting out for various services, it does eat away at that very, very quickly. Staff reorganizations has also been an important piece. I've mentioned before that we have had multiple departments reorganize rather than filling some vacant positions. So our maintenance staff, for example, what we've done on that is we've reorganized to ensure all campuses are covered, especially using, on some campuses, we have to contract out to ABN anyway. So Mr. Santina has done a very good job with that. Our nutrition department has also added floating positions that will help when there's absences, so they can move from school to school. Transportation, again, they have also added and subtracted a few positions based upon need. An office position was cut, but a mechanic position was open. Unfortunately, it's currently not filled. But reorganization has been part of that in the first semester. Technology inefficiencies has been another thing. And Mr. Williams, our technology director, has done a phenomenal job addressing some of the inefficiencies that we saw in previous years with technology. Overages for data utilization through our vendors has now stopped, especially through Cox. So he's been able to work with our vendors in ensuring that we are having the proper amount of data and being charged for the proper amount of data. We have begun moving users and certain applications to cloud-based, which has helped us without needing on-site servers and the maintenance of on-site servers. So we've begun moving that. We've also made sure that we looked at little things like unused cable TV services or phone lines that are still in existence out there. So he's been able to go in and find some of these items that we haven't been using and we don't need, and to begin reducing those inefficiencies. And also reducing software licensing costs. Sometimes it's negotiations with companies, and sometimes we're paying for 4,000 students when we're under 4,000 students. Some will work with you. Some say, well, it's a 60 or 90-day time frame that you have to work with, but it can't hurt in calling and trying. So we've definitely reworked some of our contracts, and we've become more efficient in those manners. And moving on, I talked earlier, again, different funding sources that we see or we don't see. This year, IDA, title, and safety grants, we do have the classroom site funds. And then on our cash side, we do have things like our rentals, our auxiliary funds, our ECS, our tax credits, gifts, and donations. But one thing, again, to keep in mind that I mentioned earlier is there is no more ESSER on this one. And there has been this year a reduction in our title funds as well as our IDEA funds. Upcoming items that you're going to see from the financial side, first is the annual tax credit report. So that's going to be coming up in February. And the next piece is going to be our annual audit results. Our audit is complete. We're just finishing up the questionnaires, but you will be seeing that in March.
Okay.
Any questions?
So you said we have like mechanic?
What? I'm sorry.
We have mechanic gaps in the transportation department?
We have gaps, yes.
Have we reached out to EVIT?
Yeah, we have been actually. Ms. Nelson, our transportation director, is been talking with Aaron Scher, our CTE director, to see how we can use EVIT on that one. Yes.
I mean, got to make some of these things work, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Item 4.1, call to the public. We have none. Okay, item 5, action consent. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, item 5.5, monthly financial reports presented by Dr. Pletnick.
Yeah, so Ryan, just clear.
Yeah.
Dr. Pletnick, sorry.
No worries.
So just run me through really quick, and again, this one's just more for my own learning
we
curve.
we need to make a
Need a motion first.
we need a recommendation and then a motion, and then we can go into that.
Yes.
Okay,
Is there a
recommendation.
motion?
Yeah, motion.
In a second?
Well,
Second.
so Dr. Pletnick, would
Needs
you
a
make a
recommendation
recommendation,
for
please?
Yes.
I recommend that the governing
Oh,
board.
sorry, you're still on that one. My bad.
I recommend that the governing board approve the monthly financial reports as presented.
Okay.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right.
Now I can ask my question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So many formalities. School boards and business boards look fundamentally different. So can you just run me through, just for my own, the Title I, Title II, just run me through the titles so I just understand what that means, like where they fall. That makes
Okay.
sense.
Member Moore, I probably can answer that because we manage the grants on our side. So Title I, we qualify for based off of our census data, and it's ultimately, think of it as poverty rates and free and reduced lunches. That's the one that was cut in half this past year.
Okay.
We do fund, when it is very restricted in what we can use it for, it must go directly to the students. It cannot be funded for like professional development or other things like that. It's very restricted in its usage, and it cannot supplant anything that we have in our regular budget. So if we've paid for Chromebooks through our M&O, we cannot pay for a Chromebook with, not even a single one, with Title I money. So it usually goes towards, and we typically think of it as reading and math, the basics.
Now, does that apply to all titles, just to kind of...
That's Title I. Oh, supplanting, yes, all titles.
No, I'm just saying all titles basically fall under the same kind of philosophy of they apply directly to what that cause is.
Federal funds come with the most strings.
Yeah, I'm just trying to save you a couple steps in the
Title
conversation.
II is staff development, so it's teacher learning. Title III is English learners. We get about $9,000 in that, so it's not much. And then Title IV is, I think it's like safe and healthy kids, and so it's anything other than math and reading is the way I look at it. So sometimes that could be music, art, other things like that. Again, it's such small amounts, it would never actually pay for a teacher. It's usually, I think right now we're using it for some of our second step programs, and some, like our music teachers have a curriculum that they use, and we use Title IV to pay for that.
And
Does that answer that?
Yeah, Dr. Jensen, do you also want to mention proportionate share and
Yeah.
other schools
You
with the title
probably
monies?
understand that better, but we also have to make sure that we've put in our skin. I'll say, like, we have to have our skin in the game in order to get some of the money back. So we can't just say, well, we're going to have a music program and we're solely going to pay for it out of Title IV. We have to have put in some of our M&O for a music program, and then this gets to go above and beyond. All of the titles are kind of like cherries on top, especially in Cave Creek. In other districts, they get hundreds of thousands.
Right.
Ours is very small.
And the title money that goes to
And we share that with our private schools as well. So every year, we write a check to, or we have to collaborate with them, and it's our responsibility. We have to show that we've reached out a certain number of times to our Catholic school, to Dream City, and I think it's those two right now are the big ones. And so we have to share a proportion with them and hold their hands in terms of helping them spend the money too.
Oh, okay. Sounds fun. Guess I asked the right question.
Any other questions?
No, I'm good. I was just trying to get a little roundabout on that.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Item 5.6, monthly enrollment report presented by Dr. Plotnick.
I move that the governing board take no action, but this is for information only for our monthly enrollment report.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. You pulled this. Who
I
pulled
did.
this? Okay. What's your? You had a
You ready for
question?
my? Yeah, I was trying to move it along. So, question: did we ever land the plane on? Are we getting exit interviews? Do we have any feedback? Just curious.
Yes, Member Moore, we have exit interviews, and I mean, they're always delayed because we receive our numbers and then
No, I
we
got
go
you.
back. But yes, we have exit interviews with them, and
we get
those
it
who
rolling?
respond, we get that data, and I can share that data with you guys through maybe a Friday update or something, so you can just see the raw data. I will say the general trend is school is overwhelming. I'm anxious. I need to go online. A lot of it's that. That's very broad brush strokes. There are other little stories always within there, but that is the big trend.
Okay.
Dr. Jensen, do you mostly see that starting at the middle school age, and is it different for elementary? Because, we sometimes see where they're going at sometimes it's different schools besides just online.
Yes, Member Walker, a lot of times that's the older students, but sometimes we do see with the younger ones, especially if they weren't in a public school before and then they came, and then it's overwhelming and a lot, and then they kind of adjust back. But yes, I'll send the raw data to you guys so you can all see it.
Perfect. Yeah, and it's nice to see that we're taking some from Pinnacle. Go, Coach Dixon.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Item 5.8, human resource items presented by Dr. Hendrickson.
President Busby, members of the board, move that the governing board approve the HR items as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
I know there's three of us that wanted to pull that, so would just love to kind of have you go through it in lieu of the fact, or in light of the fact that we haven't not really totally decided on the direction that we're going. I think in the essence of transparency and not moving too quickly, I know I'd like to understand it better. I think the rest of the board, and then certainly the community.
Well, I'll start with real quick the procedural thing. So anytime that we are creating a new position, we do need a governing board approval. So it doesn't mean that we've hired for this position. We have not even gotten started that process. So we have to do some legwork before we get the position posted, interview, hire for it. And as we're getting into kind of the hiring season, wanting to be proactive with it from there. And so that's why we were bringing it to you now. We will then, at some point, if we are moving forward with a candidate, would bring a candidate back to you. But I'll have Dr. Jensen talk a little bit about the positions and why we're looking to create these positions.
Yeah, that's a good question. Vice President Ulmer. So, first of all, I mean, like he said, a lot of it, I mean, this is planning for the future. However, one of the things that we've discussed is whether we close schools or not, we need to stop sending students out. And that doesn't mean a level D placement. That could be anything. So if we have a special, here's an example. A student who's in special education gets in trouble and has been doing something naughty, I'm not even going to go say what, on campus multiple times. They're up now and they're ready for like a long-term suspension or something bigger. We are obligated to still provide them with what we call FAPE, free and appropriate public education. So we cannot, they get treated differently than a general education student. With those students, what we have done historically is we send them and we pay a lot of money to privately place them while they're out. What we're looking at is finding a place for these students to go so that they don't have to be out. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be on one of our vacant campuses, especially right now. Right now, like we're talking, we could, in theory, do some of this as soon as right now, that we would bring them back. So again, we're just stopping the bleeding. It's not that we're building a new program right now. It would stop sending some of these kids out. Real quickly to note, in our ESS department, we have 3 vacancies. So we never filled the position of the assistant director, we never filled the position of elementary coordinator, and we never filled the position of the secondary coordinator so that we could reorganize. And so part of this is that restructuring and making it more in line with what we're hearing from principals that they need. They keep saying behavior, we need behavior support. And so we're trying to get BCBA support as well as a place for students where we might not be able to provide the best setting at the moment, but we also don't want to be busing them and spending way more than we need. The amount of money that we spend on tuition for one of them could pay for this position. And there's 3 positions. It's not just one position that's posted. There's also a behavior tech. There's a principal, which we struggled with, but we really wanted the principal certificate as well as the special education certificate. And so that's why we called it that. They really are, if you see their direct report is not me, their direct report, they go to Carrie Gregory. And so they're not a traditional principal and it does not have a location. So there is not a site for them. It is programs in an abstract sense right now.
So what classification or role is it then? As far as like
administrative.
Which then comes at a higher pay tier, has some other things like retirement, so on and so forth to it, right?
All positions have retirement.
Well,
yeah,
just make sure that there's different levels. If it wasn't that level down, it changes. What are the changes? Because ultimately, let me just clarify where I'm going. If in fact we're being presented with cuts and measures and we're trying to be responsible right side of ship, do I want more management in here or do I want more people doing things in here? Because I have to pick my priorities. So I guess I'm just trying to understand the long range plan here because, I mean, I'm just going to give you the straight optics. The optics don't look good when this comes up on the docket and we're sitting here talking about cuts and riffs and reorgs and all the fun stuff regardless of what we land on. And then we're going, oh, by the way, we're opening stuff. It just creates a lot of confusion. Like we haven't even landed, and I understand your planning. So I get the planning part. But I think we got to be mindful of navigating the time. We're sitting here putting out things on social media talking about kindergarten classes and we don't know which schools we're closing. Then we put this kind of thing out there and then we keep kind of shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit and trying to build the trust. So it's almost like, from my position, is like, can we pump the brakes for a second, land a few things and then come back to this, but come back to this with a full-blown plan and help us understand. I mean, again, not an educator, you are. I understand business. Some of the stuff I don't understand. So I would need a little bit more clarification on the layout and the proposal going forward because if we're going down this road, there's still an investment on the district's part from a capital standpoint to do some of these things, all the while we're trying to say the words right side the ship. So it's a little conflicting to me.
Well, and I can tell you right off the bat, we have a current high school student that came back to us that would be 45-day placed at an outside at least 45-day placed somewhere outside of our district, which would be about $8,000 in tuition right off the bat. And we're projecting 1 or 2 more at least, which aren't level D, but we don't even have a level C program in there. So that special education teacher and the behavior tech is very important for having those services for those students. Now, if we look at our elementary campuses, we look at our middle school campuses, we have those. Our high school does not. So currently, like I said, in the work study meeting, we have 30 students that we are placing outside in other schools. So the goal is for the rest of the year, in order to keep that M&O stable where it is if we can get someone to be a teacher of these students and not send them out for $8,000 a month, that is what we need to begin doing. So the optics, I 100% understand the optics on this, but this is actually an immediate need of, we currently have a student that we need to have in a level C, but we don't have one at the high school. And that could result in an outside placement, and again, more tuition costs going outside for the remaining 5 months of the school year.
Right. Well, that's why, I mean, you rattle it off. That's the part that you guys know, and it's getting the information so that we can get behind it and understand it. Because I feel like we're always kind of the last one to know. And from my perspective, sometimes it's a bit frustrating. If the community knows before the board does, I mean, what are we doing? And when we put stuff out like this and the community is already calling to question, we're like, I have no idea. I'm going to find out tonight when I get the opportunity to ask a question.
Well, clarification, I do appreciate that we actually get our agenda on Wednesday. And so this was in there since last Wednesday.
No, I read that part. But again, there's a lot of build up to that.
Yes, for sure. And I don't want to just discredit the work that's been done to try to clean up the budget. Currently, as discussed during the work study, I mean, we're sending out over $2.4 million. And during that work study, we've seen every $1 million makes a huge difference for what we're doing. So I understand these job descriptions being in here to try. I mean, if we cannot spend $2.4 million and it costs us 2 salaries to recapture even half of that, that's a huge number for us.
Correct. Okay. No, I don't disagree. I'm just saying that there's some context that has to be given versus.
Just to add a little clarification to this, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the process, especially for these special education issues, are the student is here, he is enrolled here, something is happening, he has been identified as something, he needs a certain level of support. The special ed team designates that we do not have the ability to provide that support. As soon as that decision is made, the district is on the hook for the enrollment of wherever that kid goes and the transportation. So it does happen sometimes, and I know other districts do have those facilities. I used to work in Deer Valley. They had a school that was just for that. And so, I mean, that's coming somewhere down the road. But the idea here is that we can, at some point, start saying we do have the facilities that will address this need. So we don't have to go to ACES or some other school that is providing that. And yeah, they're crazy expensive. And we have to pay the transportation costs for those things too. And I believe you that they are like often like one-on-one, right? So there's a lot of costs in it. Having some behavior specialists, being able to be here and start this process and get the teachers trained to have these kids come back or not leave is a huge benefit. So that part I know.
It was, you said $80,000 per student we've spent, up to $80,000 for some that we do send out. Okay. And that does not include the transportation, which is a driver and the aide that's sitting with them, correct?
Correct. So it kind of depends. Again, tuition varies by various programs. Yeah. So, but then you are looking at transportation costs depending upon the type. Sometimes we can transport them, and we have pairs that we can transport. Other times, for example, just one random example, we have a student going to Aspire. And we don't have a way to transport them, so the transportation is $5,000 a month, $4,500 a month. But then on top of it, the student needs a paraprofessional in with them, and then they charge on top of that $1,800 a month for the para that they supply in there. Where if we can hire our own para, we can save that cost on that as well. I mean, it's an employee of ours versus that we can use at other times too. But again, the costs can be tremendous with transportation.
And just to be super clear, I think you've been hinting at it. We don't have a choice. I think that's what Member Fortney was saying, was we are on the hook right away. If we waffle and say, oh, well, let us get our ducks in a row, then we are then paying compensatory services afterwards. So it gets even worse. And if I'm just projecting forward, just based off of the way education is going in Arizona right now, the number is going to get worse because, as some of our folks have mentioned and have figured out, is that many of these specialized programs, while open enrollment is open for all, they're at capacity when you have a child with special needs. It's very hard to find just the right place for your child. So they don't get school choice the way that everybody else gets school choice. They are hemmed in and limited, and that's not something we want. What we do want is to have more options here locally, so we're not sending these students on a bus ride for 50 minutes with an aide, and then bringing them back. So I know it doesn't, like, we don't like to add another position, and I get the optics. At the end of the day, I have to do what's best for kids, not what's best for the optics, and so that's kind of what we're looking at.
And part of that does come from that you haven't done the directors. Those positions are still vacant. Is that right?
Correct. So we never refilled elementary coordinator or secondary coordinator or assistant director in ESS. And then, just throwing it out there, we also never filled director of academic programs in my department. And so we've just been either cutting certain things that we used to do or dividing those responsibilities up among principals and other directors and myself.
And some of the pressure, especially on the special education side, of course, would come with any kind of potential lawsuit that does come about. But also the managing of the IDEA grants is not an easy process, as well as filing for Medicaid reimbursements. So those are budgets that have to be watched very, very carefully, and drawdowns off of those grants have to be done at certain times. And you know, those grants have to be written in a certain way. So with having, I would like to say, like, without having a full capacity special education department, that department is a very costly department in a number of different ways. And so it's very important that we do address some of those gaps, because it will end up costing us more in the long run if we don't.
So
go ahead.
For those specific ones, if we approve it and you submit it out there, we're going to hire for that position or positions now, like pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I would say not. I'll have Dr. chime back in, Member Ulmer, but I think part of it we would have to look at just from a staffing model of, you know, do we now have a need for a principal? Do we have enough kids coming back? No, we weren't able to get these kids back, so we can't justify hiring that and moving forward with it. So I would say we'd have to continue to look at the numbers, but it gives us the option. We have everything in line to be able to move forward with something.
The amount of time it typically takes us to find a special education person who's qualified for that, I would like to have it ready so that we could jump on it. However, I'd have to work with my good friend Dr. Plotnick over here, because he's got a tight rein on our special ed budget right now because of all of the money that we're spending out. And so we would definitely, if we can make it work, it will save us money, a lot of money in the long run.
So regardless of school closures, this is something that we want to do, period. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that was 5.8. 5.10, approval of the revised 2024-25 substitute rates presented by Dr. Hendrickson.
President Busby, Governing Board, we move that the Governing Board approve the revised 24-25 substitute rates as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
All right. So, question for you on that one is on the substitute side. If we look at the numbers, it seems to be kind of an uncontrolled spend area. How, like, I mean, and this probably falls mostly in HR, even though Dr. Plutnick has some of the numbers. How are we governing that as far as, like, do we see trends? Like, is there a certain day we see a high pickup in substitutes? Is there, like, I mean, we're already kind of pacing off budget a little bit here. So what's the plan move forward to kind of hold that in place?
Yeah, absolutely. Member Moore. And so our substitutes, so per policy, our teachers are allotted 12 general leave days a year that they are provided at their disposal. So with that, obviously, we have to have substitute coverage at that time. We do monitor that. We do look for trends. Waste management is coming up, so it's going to be a very busy Thursday and Friday in our sub-department. And so we do typically see trends on those 3-day weekends, things like that. You know, we work with our principals. We have some set blackout periods. Primarily, it's going to be the beginning of a quarter, semester, end of a semester, things like that. Anything over 3 days, per policy, they would need to have a doctor's note, let us know why they were out that long. So we do monitor those things, and also making sure we're just checking in with our individuals and finding out if there's an issue of concern that we're supporting them as well. As far as substitute budget, what that looks like, you know, we don't necessarily have a cap on it because number one, we have to provide the days that are allotted to our staff, and then there are times where we have to cover internally. There are times where, you know, when I was an elementary principal, I was pulling my counselor to cover if we didn't have a sub, or we're consolidating classes, things like that. So we have to do different areas. But I would say substitute budget as a whole is something I think, you know, as we look at if we're going to have to make up additional cuts, that may be an area that we have to look at. I don't have the exact numbers on overall cost right now.
Was the budget that you showed me, did that reflect the, let's just say every teacher takes 12 days? Did the budget back into that? I mean, I know that wasn't. I know that wasn't you that did it.
The number that was set for the budget for this year would not reflect every teacher at that school for 12 days.
Do you see that being the better modeling going forward to kind of at least?
I mean, that if we set that amount,
well, I'm just finding
it would be a large portion of our budget, right, if we take every staff member times that by 12 at each school. So typically the models for setting a substitute budget moving forward, it varies by districts, and I've seen different things in different districts. Coming from, and most recently, like Deer Valley, for example, the building principals, they meet at the beginning of the year with a teacher committee, and they set, okay, this is the district substitute budget that we have. Do we want to divide it by month? Do we want to divide it by semester? How do we do this? Everybody gets paid until we run out of money, and then we internally cover. So there's various methods of working with that. And I think, as Dr. Hendrickson said, that moving forward, if we are looking at potential more cuts moving forward, that could be something that can be discussed. But I also think that becomes an IBN negotiation of, hey, if a substitute budget is cut or if a substitute budget is set at a specific amount because of our current budget situation, how would our teachers want to handle that?
And is 12 days pretty much the standard in Arizona, or is there a difference?
Remember more, it's all over the place. Different districts, 10 is the standard that I've seen in most places where I've been. But then even as they allot those days, they may allot them as, 3 general leave days, and then the 7 are sick. Then you're managing, is it a sick day they're taking, or is it a general leave? Right. So I think when the district moved to it prior to me, it was number one, honoring our teachers where we can't pay them more. Can we provide more substitute days? And then not being in the business of managing why they're off, because sometimes life just happens and you need a day, and we want to make sure we're honoring our teachers for that and not necessarily micromanaging why they're not there that day. So,
okay. Good.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 All right, 5.11, approval of the revised classified support staff salary range for the 2024-25 school year, presented by Dr. Hendrickson.
President Busby, members of the board, we move that the governing board approve the revised classified support staff salary range for the 24-25 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second. So question on this one just went up based on.
Yeah, so with the changes that were with the increase in minimum wage, we made those adjustments at the first of the year. We had to make sure we brought this to you guys as far as approval of those rates as well. We did make some adjustments to prevent compression. Thank you. And so some of those ranges above 1470 were moved up where people are currently placed, so kind of that starting rate. So there wasn't a huge increase. We didn't move everything. We kind of moved those first 4 or 5 grades just slightly up where people are currently being paid in that range, and then making sure our starting range was 1470 with compliance with the law.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Item 6, old business, we have none. Item 7.1, fiscal year 2025 schedule for the Business and Work Study Governing Board meetings, presented by Mr. Dolezal.
President Busby, members of the board, administration recommends that the governing board approve the schedule as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Item 8.1, upcoming calendar events, presented by Mr. Dolezal.
President Busby, members of the board, upcoming events include kindergarten roundup dates, Black Mountain on January 30th, Horseshoe Trails February 6th, Desert Willow February 13th, Lone Mountain February 20th, Desert Sun February 27th. All of our events start at 5 p.m. As I mentioned earlier, CCUSD is hosting the Regional Spelling Bee at the Fine Arts Center on February 11th at 9:30 a.m. And Cactus Shadows High School AP Art Show reception is at the Holland Center on February 5th from 5:30 to 6. The art show will feature 3 amazing senior artists, Ella Miller, Ellie Parker, and Ayanna Moffett.
Awesome. All right. Item 9, adjournment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. We are adjourned at 7:36.